10 years. That's how long I thought I knew my wife, my partner, my best friend. Then, out of nowhere, she looked me in the eye and said the words that shattered everything. I'm a lesbian. It wasn't betrayal in the usual sense. No affair, no fight, no warning. Just a truth she'd buried for a decade. And I was the collateral damage. I've been married for 10 years on the surface. It looked like we had everything figured out. A steady rhythm, a comfortable life, even plans that stretched years into the future. Sometimes I'd catch myself thinking, this is it. This is the life we dreamed of when we were young. We met in that whirlwind way you always hope for. It wasn't love at first sight, but it was close. He made me laugh when I didn't want to. He listened in a way that made me feel seen, and before long, I couldn't picture my life without him. We built everything together. Our home, our routines, even the little rituals. Only we understood to me it felt solid real. But over time, tiny cracks began to show nothing explosive. No shouting matches or storm-out fights. Just distance nights where the silence stretched longer than it should have. Touches that grew less frequent, conversations that skimmed the surface but never dug deep anymore. I noticed, of course. But when you've invested so much, you tell yourself it's just a phase. Just stress, just the way long marriages sometimes shift. Nothing that screamed deal breaker. At least that's what I thought it was. And sudden, not really, more like a slow drift. I couldn't stop my wife started pulling away. Not in ways you could put on a checklist, but in those tiny, almost invisible shifts she'd hug me hello. But it felt perfunctory. A quick squeeze instead of the warmth we used to share. Kisses turned into pecks. Intimacy became rare. And when I reached for her at night, more often than not, she'd roll away. I asked if something was wrong. Sometimes she'd shrug it off, saying she was tired. Other times she'd snap, like my concern was an accusation. It got to where I hesitated to bring it up at all. She also started going out more. At first, it was just casual meeting coworkers, grabbing coffee. Then it became routine dinners, late nights, just hanging out, and it always seemed to circle back to one friend in particular, a woman I'd met a handful of times. Friendly enough, but not someone I thought much about. I told myself it was stress. Maybe she was burning out. Maybe she was depressed. Maybe she just needed space, part of me. Even wondered if she was having an affair, but that theory never fit. She wasn't secretive with her phone. She wasn't lying about where she was. And somehow my gut never landed on that explanation. Whatever the reason, I didn't see it coming. The truth wasn't even on my radar. Eventually, I couldn't take the guessing anymore. Months of tiptoeing around her mood, trying to fix things. I didn't understand it was breaking me down one night after another. Dinner eaten mostly in silence. I finally pushed. Just tell me what's going on. I said, if I've done something, if you don't love me anymore, if there's someone else, whatever it is, I can handle it. I just need the truth. She froze for a long moment. I thought she'd get angry again or shut down the way she always did. But then she sighed, and I saw her eyes fill in a way they hadn't for me in years. There isn't another man, she whispered. There never was. The truth is I'm a lesbian. I can't keep pretending anymore. The words didn't even register at first. I sat there waiting for the rest. Like she'd say she was joking or that it was some phase or anything else that made sense in the context of the life we'd built. But she just sat there looking both terrified and free. It was like a gut punch. 10 years together, all the memories, all the plans, we'd built an entire future on something that was never real for her. I felt blindsided, hollowed out, betrayed because she'd let me love her while hiding something so fundamental. But at the same time, buried under the shock, there was this strange flicker of relief. Finally, I had an answer. Finally, the distance and the coldness made sense. I didn't know whether to cry or scream, so I just sat there in stunned silence, realizing the marriage I thought I understood had ended long before she spoke. The words out loud, the days after her confession, are a blur in my memory. Equal parts sharp pain and numb disbelief. I couldn't stop replaying it in my head. 10 years. 10 years of anniversaries, trips, plans, inside jokes, late-night whispers. 10 years where I thought I was building something real, only to find out it was built on a truth she never shared. The heartbreak came first, then the anger. I couldn't stop asking myself, was I not enough? Did I waste a decade of my life on someone who never really wanted me? Every memory suddenly felt tainted, like I was looking at our whole marriage through cracked glass when we tried to talk. She kept saying, I still love you, just not in that way, as if that was supposed to be comforting. But hearing it only twisted the knife deeper. She loved me like a friend, a partner in logistics. Someone safe, but not in the way I had loved her every single day. That kind of imbalance can shatter a person. Friends and family had their own reactions. Some rallied around me, told me it wasn't my fault that this was about her identity, not my worth. Others were colder, almost dismissive. At least she didn't cheat on you with another man, or you should be happy. She was honest, as if honesty after 10 years of silence somehow erased the damage. I felt caught between two realities. One where I was the victim of betrayal and one where I was expected to be understanding, enlightened, even supportive. But in my chest, all I felt was grief. Grief for the marriage I thought I had, and grief for the future that no longer existed once the shock dulled into something heavier. The conversations turned to logistics, the ugliest word in the English language. At that point, divorce finances, splitting the house, what to do about the kids, our whole life laid out like a business contract ready to be dismantled. I sat across the table from her, listening to her talk about custody schedules and bank accounts, and all I could think was any of it real? 10 years of being her husband, believing she chose me because she loved me in the same way I loved her. But she couldn't, our marriage had been built on a truth she never spoke out loud. And I was left holding the rubble some nights. The anger won. I hated her for wasting my time, for stringing me along, for letting me build a future that was never really mine. Other nights, I saw the pain in her face and hated myself for hating her, because I knew she hadn't chosen this. Either she had been hiding from herself as much as from me. That was the worst conflict, being torn between wanting to scream at her for what she'd taken from me and recognizing that in her own way she'd been trapped too. She hadn't married me to hurt me. She'd married me because at the time she thought that's what she was supposed to do. It didn't make the betrayal sting any less. It didn't give me back the years, but it kept me from fully despising her, even when every part of me wanted to. In the weeks that followed, I lived in a constant tug of war with myself. On one hand, I felt betrayed. She'd let me pour a decade of my life, my love, my energy into something that could never last. She'd smiled at me, made promises, built dreams with me, all while knowing there was a truth she couldn't share. That deception carved scars I don't think will ever fully fade. But then there were moments of empathy almost against my will. I'd catch myself imagining what it must have been like for her growing up, trying to force herself into a mold. She didn't fit marrying me because it seemed easier to keep playing the part she hadn't chosen to be this way. She hadn't set out to hurt me. Her sexuality wasn't about me at all. And yet I was the collateral damage. That's the part I can untangle. Knowing I wasn't the cause doesn't make the wounds any less deep. Knowing she didn't mean to lie doesn't erase the fact that she did. Now everything feels uncertain. I question my own judgment, my ability to trust, even my sense of identity. If I could spend 10 years not seeing the truth in my own marriage, how could I ever trust myself to see it in someone else? Sometimes I wonder if I'll ever risk marriage again. The thought of giving that much of myself only to find the ground shifting beneath me once more terrifies me. Right now, I don't have an answer. All I know is that love, as I thought I understood it, will never look the same in the end. That's what hurts the most. It didn't end because of cheating or some explosive fight, or even the slow decay that breaks most marriages. It ended because the truth came 10 years too late. And now I'm left here sifting through a decade of memories, wondering what was real and what was just her trying to convince herself. I don't know if I lost my wife or if I never really had her in the first place.